For the past dozen years, my family has been a customer of a CSA farm. CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture, and here's how it works. You buy an annual share in the farm's produce, vegetables, eggs, maple syrup, honey. If they have a bumper crop, you receive more. If they are hit hard by drought or disease, you receive less. But in every year, in all seasons, the farm maintains a steady income while your household receives more kale than you know what to do with. The farmer, Adrian, recently wrote a letter to all returning CSA customers. In it, he likened being a farmer to being a boxer, trying to get up off the mat after being knocked down in the 10th round. As farmers, we can sometimes feel like that boxer, he wrote, beat up by the season, exhausted, and starting to feel like we might not have the physical or mental strength to get back up again after the last blow that knocked us down. But you, our CSA and Farmers Market members, are like the coach in our corner, giving us the confidence and faith to get back up and keep going. Twice a year, Adrian and his family host a farm day, and I love taking my daughter Rose, who's 9. She loves the farm. We seek out the pigs, we wander through the fields, we get a ride on their workhorses, and we walk among the chickens. If I'm honest, I like the chickens as much or more than Rose does, and I've since tried to convince my wife that we should get backyard chickens. For Christmas a few years back, my wife gave me a small package. In it was a Lego chicken coop, complete with movable hens, with a single note with a single line, "This is the closest you're going to get." Point taken. In the intervening years, I've settled for reading to my daughter a children's book from the 60s entitled Rosie's Walk. The story follows Rosie, a lovable hen, as she goes about her day walking from place to place around the farm. Little does she know that a sly fox follows her at a distance, repeatedly trying to catch her for his lunch. But the fox's attempts are spoiled by God or circumstance, and the hen returns home to the coop at the end of the day, safe and sound. Our gospel today is no children's story. Jesus himself posts the cast list outside the music room door. The Pharisees are the chorus. King Herod is the fox. Jesus is the hen. And the stage crew should do its best to make it look like Jerusalem. We've seen this play and we know how it ends. The fox gets the hen. And all those whom the hen sought to protect are scattered, and they do not make it home safely by nightfall. Somewhere between Sunday school and high school, many of us start doubting the scriptures and the God who is revealed in them. Give us Noah, who squeezed all those animals in the ark 2 by 2, check. Mary, who placed that baby in a manger, check. Jesus, who welcomed and loved children, check. But the underbelly and the overhead of these stories, the darker emotions, can leave us feeling exposed. What about all those people who perished in the flood? Or Mary, who many years later would take that same child down from a cross. Or those who, serving in Jesus' name, would harm the children that Jesus welcomed. When the fox catches the hen, it's enough to make you wonder if it's even the same story we're reading. If we're still even part of that same story that we thought we knew. One of my favorite quotes comes from a church father in the 3rd century who went by the name Origen. He said, "The scriptures are so shallow that a baby can play in them, so deep that an elephant can drown." When you and I find ourselves in such depths, scripturally, globally, personally, where do we turn? What do we do with those feelings? This weekend marks 5 years since the onset of the pandemic. 5 years ago yesterday, I met with the staff team in my office, and we went along with the decision of the diocese to shutter our physical church doors. And within 2 weeks, we had opened our virtual ones in a place called Church at Home. The last 5 years have been devastating, full stop. They brought about the end of so much that we love. And these years have also been incredibly generative, breaking open and creating newness that did not exist before. A few years back, when we were first permitted to open our church doors, the diocese launched a visioning process called Cast the Net. The bishop invited me to be a part of that team who worked for 2 years to listen deeply and try to discern a way forward for our diocese. One of my first tasks was to sift through the brutally honest comments gleaned from 4 different clergy days held across the diocese in the fall of 2022. I recruited Pam to partner with me, and together we sat with the verbatim feedback from more than 200 clergy about what they had seen, heard, and experienced during the pandemic. We understood our task as to get out of the way and to try to let the voices of the clergy speak for themselves, to try to sort and sift those voices and look for some themes or categories that were kind of emerging organically. Here's just a few verbatim comments from clergy. We are a small parish weighed down by the burden of caring for an aging building and property. We'd like to start dreaming, but everyone is so tired. We need to name the truth. Why isn't everyone coming back? 2. There is a new reality in the sense of grief around losing a lot of things. 3. I have no clue about how to make the next step. I'm working hard on being a non-anxious presence. And finally, it's time to be brave so people can be brave with us. It's okay if it doesn't work. It is an opportunity to learn. As we began this process, it became clear that sifting the clergy comments into so-called positive and negative comments was completely inadequate. The nuances were too great and varied, and words like weariness and energy kept coming up from people, sometimes the same people. And we tried to find a way, we began to see these were not polar opposites, but they were somehow connected. And that insight about that connection between weariness and energy turned us back to a book from Old Testament scholar Walter Brueggemann. It's called The Prophetic Imagination. And what I learned from Brueggemann, I want to share with you this second Sunday of Lent. The only way forward is via lament. He writes, Jesus knew what we numb ones must always learn again, that weeping must be real because endings are real, and that weeping permits newness. Jesus' weeping permits the kingdom to come. Jesus weeps over the city of God and all who are in it. In Hebrew, when you want to say something with emphasis, you say it twice. Jerusalem, Jerusalem. How often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. Things are not as they should be, and Jesus doesn't pretend otherwise. Our Lenten theme is wild hope. How on earth is lament a mode of hope? In listening to my clergy colleagues, I learned that the capacity to grieve is what opens up the possibility of true change. When we're brave enough to say unflinchingly that things are not okay, it starts a hairline crack in the edifice of that which is seemingly impenetrable. Maybe what I see now is not everything there is. Or as the Apostle Paul would write, hope that is seen is not hope. Without Lent, we are tempted to keep on pretending that everything is just fine. The kids, the relationship, the job, the dream, the future. Lent gives us permission to remember and to cling to different stories. The ones that take place in the wilderness, in exile, where the fox does get the hen. Stories of lament where death sneaks up on you unawares. Like farming and boxing, learning to follow Jesus Christ is not for the faint of heart. Sometimes we're knocked down in the 10th and aren't at all sure we're going to get back up, or even if we want to. And at such times, we show up to this community to be reminded of who we are. Brueggemann again. The prophet must not underestimate his or her urgent calling, for the community of faith has no other source of newness. Exiles must always learn that our hope is never generated among us, but is always given to us. And whenever it is given, we are amazed. Newness is not a formula. I wish it were. It does not come on our timetable or from the tiny garden of our expectations. Hope comes to us from the wild place, from the wilderness, from the grave. Hope comes to us in Jesus, who rose not on the first or the second day, but on the third. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.